Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on which part of the world you are joining us from. We're excited to have the opportunity to have all of you join us for today's webinar, put together by the Africa-China Center for Policy Advisory, the ACCPA. And of course, we're very privileged to have some distinguished guests that are here to share with us some key insights regarding the very, very important platform that has shaped and continue to shape Africa-China relations. So the formats of the webinar, I will share briefly, but this webinar is scheduled to last for give or take an hour. And I'll first introduce who we are as ACCPA for those that are joining us for the first time. And then I'll then hand over to a moderator who will then take over and introduce our distinguished speakers, and we'll zoom into the discussion and get some insights, actionable insights on what it is that we are looking at in terms of opportunities and challenges following the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation that was held last year. That is 24 years since the inception of the FOCAC. I believe that all of us on this webinar have a keen interest in trying to track and analyze and understand what's happening between Africa and China, which is very significant. And for us, that is what we are here to do, so that we can all have a very insightful discussion. So as we have speakers, I will share their perspective. We welcome questions from participants as well. And so you will be able to use the Q&A button on the Zoom app to send through your questions that you have. If you have questions now, you can even start dropping it even before our speakers start speaking. But then again, if you have a specific question for a specific speaker, you can ask those questions as they begin their sharing their insight. So for the benefit of those joining us for the first time, this is ACCPA, the Africa-China Center for Policy and Advisory, a leading policy research think tank focused on knowledge production and, of course, creating a platform for dialogue and exchange of ideas between Africa and China. And our ultimate aim is to ensure there's a vibrant, viable African agency when it comes to the engagement between Africa and China, which we believe is very significant, Africa and China. So we try as much as possible to produce insight, to create platform like we have here today, where we bring guests, experts from various fields across various geographies to share insight that we believe can shape the kind of relation that's happening between Africa and China. So we believe that as Africans, we must be very central in the policies of our governments, from the central, which is the African Union level, to individual country level, in terms of public policies, and again, even the private sector in terms of how businesses and investment are shaped because of the engagement with China, because of China's presence on the continent, and of course, and vice versa, because of Africa's engagement with China and African businesses and investors also working on doing business in China. So it's very important that we scale up the knowledge production and put our best foot forward to ensure that as Africans, at least, we believe that that can help us, shape the kind of development that we want, the African that we want. So that's our mission, that's our vision, to bring on board as many African voices as possible. And so far, we have teams in multiple countries. We have team in Botswana, in Tanzania, in the DRC, in Ethiopia, in Indonesia, and of course, we are headquartered in Accra, Ghana, where we have teams there as well that are working across various regions, trying to ensure that we're able to meet our objective and our mission. So thank you very much for joining. So this is one of many virtual platforms we create. We have in-person activities as well. So as you join us today, it means that you're already in our database. And of course, in the course of the year, if there are any such in-person activities, you'll be able to know it, and of course, you'll be able to join us as well. So today we are very privileged to have this discussion, and from now on, I'll hand over to moderator, Mercy Tedeku. Mercy is a research associate at the ACCPA. She's based in our Ghana office. So Mercy will take over and she'll give us any preliminary announcements that are there, and she will introduce our speakers, and of course we'll zoom into the discussion. So thank you very much for joining wherever you are. You can still share the link with your contact or network if you believe this webinar will be very important to the work that they do or are about to do. Then please do share the link with them as we here for the next 1 hour or so. So thank you very much, and Mercy, you can take over now.
All right, Paul. Hi, everyone. So I'm privileged to be here today and to be given the opportunity to moderate today's webinar. So without much ado, I would like to read a profile of our speakers so that I hand over to them to give in their introduction with regards to the topic. Then we proceed with the Q&A session. So like Paul said, we are hoping to have a very interactive session. So please do well to send in your questions and your contributions using the Q&A button on your screen so that we can have a very interactive session. Okay. So without much ado, I think today we have with us Anna. So, and you are welcome. And then we have Mr. Dennis. Mr. Dennis, you're also welcome to today's webinar.
Thank you so much, Mercy.
Okay.
And thank you for having me.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so Anne has been working alongside institutional and private clients for over 3 years at 35 North, a leading African advocacy firm. She possesses in-depth knowledge of Africa's geopolitical landscape and communication strategies. She attended the FOCAC 2024 session in Beijing, supporting Africa's institutional and private delegation. Anna is also actively involved in Franco-Chinese economic exchanges. She has worked for the French embassy in China and Huawei, France, and still contributes to these exchanges through the ACCPA association based in Paris. So that's Anna's profile. So let me read that of Mr. Dennis. So Mr. Dennis Munene Mwaniki, please pardon me with the pronunciation of the name, is the Executive Director of the China Africa Center and Director of Research at the Africa Policy Institute in Nairobi. He is also a non-resident research fellow at the Institute for Strategic and Policy Studies, South Sudan. Dennis is currently a PhD candidate in development economics at the University of Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Dennis holds a master's in international conflict management from the Institute of Diplomacy and International Studies, University of Nairobi, and a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and Sociology from the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. He is an alumnus of Bloomberg Media Initiative Africa training and financial journalism of Stratton Business School. Dennis has authored books, book chapters, peer-reviewed journal articles, and research articles in local and international newspapers on issues related to governance, foreign relations, development, peace, and security. His latest book is co-authored by Professor Peter Wanja, titled Development as Peace, The Impact of Kenya's Standard Gauge Railway. Dennis is a member of the World Association of China Studies and the Youth Research Group of the Global Think Tank Network for Democracy. Okay. I think that was the profile of our speakers, and I'd like to hand over to them. Today's session is going to be focused on post-FOCAC, the opportunities, the challenges, and then the future of Chinese investment in Africa. So without much ado, I think Mr. Dennis, your mic is already muted, so please you can take over and then give us your introduction to the topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me here, and I thank you, my brother Paul, whom we got to meet when we were in China, and we're just pushing the same agenda that we are today. And I'm happy that you're putting it, and I like what Mr. Paul said, that you're bringing about the aspect of the Africans in this conversation, because this is where the genesis of FOCAC began. And as I laid down in terms of now to conceptualize this narrative, I take you back to the 1960s, 1980s, when the structural adjustment programs were initiated by the Bretton Woods Institute, that's the IMF and the World Bank. And for them, they thought that they're going to help and deal with the issues of Africa. But yet remember, some of these policies and programs were just based on their own agendas. And you look also prior to FOCAC in 2000, you look at the groups like the EU, most of their trade agreements that were put in place, that they balkanized Africans with other regions. And basically for them, Africans were not that important. And so when we come to now the groundwork, and more so specifically now to the topic of discussion, we have to go back to the genesis of FOCAC in 2000. Why was FOCAC established? Even before we come to 2024 FOCAC, which now will set the ground for the 2025-2027 agenda. One is that FOCAC was more of an initiative that was pushed by Africa. Africans were struggling. Africans were, there were so much issues of poverty and development that Africans were facing. And in 2000, African countries wanted to be able to experience development. And this now we come to where now FOCAC began, and FOCAC initially began more as a policy engine to drive some of these things that Africans wanted. And then now from 2000 to 2024, and now to 25 years later, we've seen a lot of transformation. We've seen that FOCAC has been able to transform the continent of Africa. And I've been able to travel across and able to see what FOCAC has done, and more so BRI, which happens also be under the implementation engine. And FOCAC one is that we never used to have simple things like roads. It is sad to say, but in most parts of African countries, there were no roads. In most of African countries, our health system was still languishing. In most of the African countries, again, you find things like railways were not there. And so for a long time, as Africans, we've been pushing the issue of integration. But integration without development cannot be able to take place. And so FOCAC and more so came with the conceptual aspect of it, and more pushing the issue of peaceful development in Africa. And that set ground for some of these policies that were pushed in place. Also FOCAC again also drive, I'm still in the aspect of just the conceptual aspect of it. FOCAC still also happened to push the aspect of humanism. Where you find that most of the policies that are there are more people-centric. Policies that are going to transform the lives of many Africans. You look also, again, the other issue of FOCAC that also have been able to push, and has been one of the things that have been able to affect and bring a lot of issues. The issue of ecological civilization, whereby you are able to harmonize development with the environment. And that's what also within the policy aspects, FOCAC is trying to be able to push. And so today, I was just looking at the numbers, and I've seen that the trade between Africa and China has grown. And as of last year, they were able to trade between $294.3 billion. This is a big leap from what we've seen at the beginning of the FOCAC in 2000. And so FOCAC has transformed the continent in so many aspects, in so many ways, and it's going to do that. When it comes to the opportunities, basically, you cannot go away from the 10 points agenda that were laid down, because that's where the whole thing you're going to drive. You're going to show the issues of the mutual learning, basically the implementation and the establishment of the 25 centers, which are going to help most of the sinologists who are delving in this study to be able to understand more about China, to understand more about Africa. Because along the way, we noticed that some Chinese don't understand Africa. Similar to we Africans don't understand some of the policies in China. And so to be able to harmonize the two civilizations, we had to be able to ensure we bring these centers, which are key and are going to help transform the content. The issues of trade cooperation, as I said earlier, trade is able to improve. There's the aspect of opportunity within the industrial chain. As a content, remember, still we are struggling with low industry and all that. That becomes an aspect that we need to deal with, and hope that we are going to do that. Issue of connectivity, the issue of development cooperation, issue of healthcare. Right now, most of African countries are struggling. Once the US aid was rolled down, because remember, most of the healthcare system in Africa was supported by the US aid. And so luckily is that most countries also had a lot of partners with Chinese. And in Zimbabwe, for example, you'll find that from February 23rd this month to around March 1st, the Chinese medical team are there conducting free cataract surgeries. So this is something that has been there and will continue with more opportunities. You look at the aspect of green development, it's a big issue. Remember that Africa today, we are able to have almost 40% of the key minerals that are required to push the green energy agenda. These are the cobalt. We have the issues of the aluminium, the lithium, and all that, which are there in Africa. And this is one of the things that China has been keen on partnering, especially to be able to push the electric vehicles industry, China and also across. Also the issues of common security. Remember, one thing is that's one of the challenges that we are having as a continent, and without peace, there's no development. And so those are the opportunities that China and Africa are going to be able to push for the next 3 years. That's between 2025 to 2027. For the challenges, just laying ground is that the challenges are in two ways. The first, we have what I group it as the endogenous challenges. And then we have the second, which are the exogenous challenges. The endogenous are what we Africans have been facing for a long time. The issue of poverty. It's one of the things that still affects the relationship between China and Africa. We have the issues of poor governance in Africa. That's one also, again, the issue that I've been able to deal and affect our leadership, and more so some of the opportunities that are there in China and Africa. We have the issues of corruption within our governance system again. We have also weak institutions. As you can see that there are those countries in Africa that are able to progress. Others are still lagging behind. And also again, we have the major issue, which is conflict and instability. Today, we are still having the issues of the DRC and Rwanda. That again becomes an issue. We have the issue of Sudan that has affected some of the projects that are within FOCAC. We have the issues of Ethiopia and Egypt. All of them, again, becoming a very key issue, especially in pushing the China-Africa. The exogenous challenges are basically what we all face, the climate change issues. We also have the geopolitics that are there. And these geopolitics come in so many aspects of it. We have still the issues, the conflict within the Israel and Palestine, Ukraine and Russia. And these have an impact on the relationship between China and Africa. You look at some of these other narratives that are being pushed, such as the politics of nationalism that we are going to experience in the next 4 years with Trump administration. That is something that we are going to face as two civilizations, China and Africa. And we have to brace and know how to maneuver through these challenges of politics of nationalism. We have the issues of the debt trap that are there, and narratives that have been pushed to be able to curtail the progress that has been happening in Africa. And so some of these challenges that we're going to talk more as we continue what are going to be a critical impact and especially in China, Africa, actualizing the 10-point agenda. So I'll stop from there and then I'll be able to continue. Thank you. You're muted.
Sorry. Okay, I was saying that was a great one, giving us insights from what FOCAC is, the opportunities it has brought to Africa, and then to the endogenous and exogenous challenges. I have some follow-up questions, but first of all, I'd like to take Anand's submission as well. So Anand, you can take the floor.
Thank you, Mercy, and thank you so much, Jenny, for the introduction of historical establishment of FOCAC. And of course, I've really appreciate when you say that we can't understand every Chinese people or every African country, but the meaning of FOCAC today is to beyond the economic ties, we are also improving to strengthen the comprehensive cultural and cultural discussions. So actually, my FOCAC history journey began when I was in China Foreign Affairs University. So when I was at school, I was volunteer in the last 2021. The 2018 FOCAC edition. And last year in September, as a active player, sort of player in Beijing during the FOCAC, I've seen a improvement between China and Africa. Today, the relations are shaping. There's a decrease of Chinese investment in Africa. Chinese investors are searching for more practical, more effective, and more green, more clean energy projects, like what you said, Danny. And of course, how about the African part? Actually, the asymmetry of China-African relations, that was true. And the both part, we are trying to, and we fix it or propose some concrete solutions. Actually, African expertise, African products, and also African talents can also be a important player, can be a bridge to China-African relations. There's a perspective of growth, for example, of African exportation in China, and that was one of the key points of last FOCAC edition. So I've gotten to share my slide, so I would just share my screen. Sorry. Yeah, I think you can see my screen. I'll make a. Yeah, can you see my screen?
Sure, we can see it.
Yeah. So I think these key figures, we are really familiar with it because African medias, Occidental medias have really talked a lot around these key figures. Yeah, it's a symbol of China-Africa's strengthening relations. But also, of course, there's a decrease of Chinese investment due to a lot of sectors. But however, I think last FOCAC, when I was there, I think it's really a huge and influential event. I was personally present alongside several private and institutional African or Chinese government clients. What I felt that a key difference in this edition is that African partners are more active and are increasingly becoming practical because they come to China with a clear objective. We need investment. They are in Beijing to attract investors. So their delegations are structured at a very highly vertical level from ministers, of course, from country leaders, ministers, public institutions, and banking players who are financing the future projects. So the level of delegation are really vertical and important. So it's a strong wish of African leaders to attract Chinese investors. And additionally, as you saw, the forum served also as a platform for multiple diplomatic meetings. For example, Raila Odinga, the former candidate for AUC presidency, he has lost, but was part of the Kenyan delegation. And similarly, the president of Madagascar followed the same approach to support his Malagasy candidate. So actually, FOCAC is not only about China-Africa relations. It's also it is becoming a main stage of multi-diplomatic thing for between African leaders and African different economic regions, West Africa, South African, and also Northern Africa regions. So that was interesting to notify, and of course, what I've participated actively was also the side events organized by different African countries. And I think, and Danny, maybe you know it better, it's really a new thing because the last edition, before last September, we haven't seen such a active level of different African country side events. For example, last September, I was with one of our clients in Gabon. So, for example, the countries like DRC, Gabon, Madagascar, Côte d'Ivoire, they have organized, they have invested in their own side to organize investment forums and summits, like Invest in Gabon, Invest in Côte d'Ivoire. I think it's a new thing, and they are really active to deliver a message to say, we are here and we have the projects, initiatives, resources. And today, also Africa, we have talents, we have technologies, and let's keep a investment projects match. And this practical approach was really something I think is new and it's interesting for the last FOCAC. So the majority of contracts and agreements have also been signed. The MOUs have been signed during this country-led initiatives during FOCAC. So of course, today's key points is about how we improve in their implementation. So it has been five months since last FOCAC. Of course, China-Africa relations are constantly evolving with new projects being launched every day, every month. But today, let's focus on the most FOCAC-related projects and initiatives that deserve our attention. So for example, the first one, as we've both mentioned, the clean energy, green financement, the green sectors are one of the key issues that have been discussed during the last FOCAC edition. So we have seen some follow-up, and of course, important and critical concrete follow-ups. For example, in October, China and the AU held a meeting to strengthen energy cooperation. Actually, it's to concretizing the 30 signed clean energy during FOCAC. But this time, they've also involved players in the green finance. Over 300 industry leaders in solar, wind, and hydropower projects were present. So that was the 3 key sectors that Chinese investors are watching today and for the future. So it's the first concrete outcome of FOCAC in clean energy. What is particularly interesting also, just like I said, the investment matchmaking process is once again a key element of this kind of meeting. So we saw both Chinese and African players are adopting a very practical approach, similar to what happened during FOCAC. So the future of China-Africa relations and more broadly, China global South cooperation seems to be moving forwards to a more practical, result-driven, efficient, action-oriented approach. It was interesting to highlight this point. And of course, you have, I think, Danny, you have surely followed up this news in December. So a zero tariff access for African exports has been signed. I think it's really an important step because China is responding to African parts, but also to criticism globally in occidental media that asymmetry in its relationship with Africa. But the things are changing. There's a positive shift. As I said before, African expertise, African products, and also African technologies they have. Today, we can build a plant in Africa. They could now serve as a leverage exports to China. So this zero tariff of 140 products, this policy aligned with the FOCAC's main message. We need to come forward, to a more balanced trade relationships with Africa. Let's go on. So in the beginning of this year, the Foreign Minister of China, Wang Yi, has visited Namibia, Republic of Congo, Chad, and Nigeria. It's also, of course, it's also a traditional step because it's the 35th continuous first overseas visit of China. There's a strong message, of course. Africa is, I think, is quite important for Chinese relationship, but also for Chinese diplomatic policies. So Wang Yi's visit has been also highlighted by medias, by think tanks. We are watching on how about the key outcomes with his visit. So we can see Wang Yi has once again emphasized China's support for infrastructure projects signed during the FOCAC, and of course, new financial agreements. So that is quite new from, it's a progress from the last FOCAC. So Nigeria's expanded currency swap deal, there's a concrete advancement with Wang Yi's visit. And last but not least, is about security assistance to Africa. I think that will also be a key issue for the action plan 2025 to 2027. Security assistance, China wants to concretize with the training of local troops in Africa with an objective of 6,000 in the end of 2027. So we, of course, we can see that during the last FOCAC, we are talking less about the huge planned, the huge investment, infrastructure investment, for example, our President Xi Jinping and also Chinese actors are talking more about small and beautiful projects. It's one of a new term in China-Africa relations. So it's China will go on their policy strategy to focus on smaller, high-impact initiatives, so that are cost effective. That's why we can observe a decrease of Chinese investment. Of course, sustainable. I think it's important to highlight on the local participant of the projects. Actually, Chinese investors are not just financing the projects and choosing Chinese companies, infrastructure companies or B2B companies to concretize projects, but the sustainability of the projects need to involve African players, African companies, African expertise. So it's if we can complete that, so it's also could be the ideal project. So it's locally beneficial. So China is really trying to deliver practical solutions, which is more involved with clean energy, like what we said, digital infrastructure. Today, we know that AI is revolutionizing the whole world, but also in Africa with the digital development. What's the next step of AI in Africa? It's also a good question for the China-Africa relations. So based on this key implementation of FOCAC relations in 2025, I would just like to conclude with what said Danny later. There's a huge geopolitical tensions and also evolutions, like what you've mentioned, with DRC crisis, with regional tensions, but also with upcoming African elections. So actually, all these all these factors could have an impact on China-Africa relation. It will be shaped by this dynamics, but also don't forget about the competition between US and China in Africa, like what you've said, Danny, the critical mining sectors, the future of electric vehicles. I think the future is in Africa, because it's from Africa we can find the majority of critical minerals. So of course, African players know that, but I think there's still a long way to go between the localization of productions of some batteries. I think there was a first battery plant in Africa. But in the coming years, maybe there will be more projects or opportunities which could help also African countries to transform, localize their local resources, but locally. So that will, of course, shape the future of global supply chain. But I think the debate is open. And of course, in the future, with the global South relations, China will reinforce the relationships with global South broadly, despite the competition with US, with other superpowers. So overall, I don't know, Danny, but I'm always quite positive about the future of China-Africa relations. And of course, it's linked with what I'm doing today. So I'm working for a China and Africa advocacy communication agency. So actually, culture communication, strategy communication between these actors, these countries are really important, because sometimes in Chinese culture, we really want to make efforts, but we don't want to speak too much about our effort. But actually, the strategy communication are really important. So don't hesitate if you have any question on this part. So you can contact me about these issues. Thank you so much.
All right, Anna.
Give you back the micro.
Okay, I think that was a very detailed submission there. And I would like us to proceed with our Q&A session. So I think during your submission, you made mention of the Small is Beautiful project as the new policy strategy by President Xi Jinping that's shifting to projects that are small and beautiful in nature. So I'd like to know, what measures do you think can be taken to ensure that this Chinese-funded project, they are African inclusive and then consider to benefit the marginalized communities? So taking the Small is Beautiful project, what measures can be taken to ensure that these projects in Africa are inclusive and then benefit the marginalized communities? Thank you.
Even before that, just as a top up to that question, theme on the beautiful, small, sustainable, impactful project that you mentioned. In your submission, you did mention that during the FOCAC in Beijing, you were part of a team which you facilitated as like investor roadshow for Gabon and invest in Cote d'Ivoire, invest in Gabon, right? I think this is very significant, as you mentioned, it's very significant, as for the first time you've seen African countries hosting side events at FOCAC just to ensure that they attract investment to their country. Now, that relating to the small beautiful, now as the focus being small beautiful, did you get a sense that the projects being pitched by the East African countries, like invest in Gabon, invest in Cote d'Ivoire, did you sense that these projects that were being pitched by these countries, the opportunity that they were presenting, fit into that narrative, or was it still same as before, where investments between Africa and China are characterized by big, mega infrastructure projects, which has happened in the last 2-3 decades, as we've seen most of the infrastructure that we've seen in Africa? Because I want to see if there's an alignment between what China is aiming to do now, not just in Africa, but of course across the world. This is a global approach of China now when it comes to investment, even through the BRI, right? Small, impactful, sustainable project. I wanted to know if it aligns with what the African countries presented, because this is very practical, because you were there, you heard them. The projects that were presented, were they in alignment with this focus of China, or was, in the opposite direction, where it's to focus on mega projects? Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. And that was interesting because we've already discussed about this issue earlier. So what can honestly, what can I say to you is also my personal observations. So I have kept in contact with, for example, Gabonese delegations, so private sector's delegations, I mean, who have pitched their projects, who have signed MOUs with Chinese players, institutions, or private companies or public companies. There's a great difference. We talk less and less the mega projects, like what you've said, Paul. We are really focusing on more efficient, smart and practical, and the clean energy in transportation, and also in digital sectors. These are my key observations. And of course, because I've kept contact, so I followed up their future visits in Beijing. So in November and December, there were 2 different Gabonese delegations that had to China, not only in Beijing. And this time they visit the Nanjing's, for example, Nanjing's plants in the aim to concretize their MOUs. So actually the processing is following up, and I think that could also be shown by the different diversity of actors, because when they come back to China, of course it was not the presidency delegation. The private players, Gabonese businessmen are also involved in this project. So they are not only talking about the mega projects, mega national projects. They want to make in business with little and middle level of Chinese companies. So that I respond to you this question with my personal experience and my following up.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, Dennis, I think Mercy just joined us. She left, but she just joined us. But before I ask a question to Dennis, please, we welcome questions from you. If you have questions, please try and use the Q&A button on the app, and then put in your question. And I'm more than happy to read out a question to our distinguished panelists. So please do. Dennis, you in your earlier submission, you did refer to the 10-point action plan from last year's FOCAC, right? So of the 3, my question is, of the 10, my question is, yeah, they're all equally important, but which top 2 would you think struck you the most as being a practitioner? You're a researcher, you work in a think tank, you had a division that focused on Africa-China relations. You've seen the transformation in terms of relation between Africa and China over the years through your work. So if you sit back and look at this 10, action plan from FOCAC, which will be your top 2 that stands out, and how do you think Africa can actually leverage on these top 2 for you? Just briefly, we are pressed for time, so if you can just be concise on them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think for me, all of them are equally important, but the top 2 one is the trade cooperation. This is something that we who have been on this other side, and we've been attending most of these meetings and trying to talk to our counterparts in China, is that for a long time we've been complaining that the trade has been more skewed, and you find that the Africans have not been benefiting as much, and so when we see some of the zero tariffs that are being pushed, it's basically to ensure that Africa gets to benefit from the trade cooperation. And that's very key, because that's what is going to transform and ensure that we be able to sell most of our products. Yet again, other than trade, we also have the industrial cooperation, because those 2 go hand in hand. And the reason why I choose the 2 of them is that, remember, Africa, we are very rich with raw materials. And the reason why our trade has been skewed, and more so we've had a trade deficit when we come to do at the numbers between China and Africa, is that we tend to export our raw materials. We don't do any value addition. You'll find that a country like Kenya, we are rich in production of coffee and tea. So we basically are going to send our tea and coffee in these other countries in raw form, and then we import them back as products that have already been processed. And so you see, we sell, we export at $1, and then we import in $10. Basically, we lose. And so the industry chain cooperation is very important. And I hope our leaders are going to be able to push and focus on that we need to build industries, what we call now the industrial processing places, platforms and all that. We need to ensure that we have those industries built in Africa, so that we can be able to produce and add value to most of our products. Like I said earlier, we happen to have almost 40% of the critical minerals, which again, we are taking them as raw material, whereby we find that we take them and they're able to come back as batteries, which are expensive. Yet we exported the lithium, the cobalt quite cheaply. And so those are the things that we Africans need to be able to push and focus. So for me, those two are critical, the trade and industrial cooperation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dennis. Mercy, there are already questions in there. I'll read the first question, which is from Sylvia. Sylvia actually is one of our colleagues. So she's a research fellow at the ACCPA. So she's asking, under Africa-China Economic Cooperation, how do African nations ensure that Chinese-funded projects are aligned with their national development priorities and needs? So obviously, it's part of the when opening the box about Africa, it's part of the things that have been discussed. Because there's a historical backing here. We look at some of the investment that happened in Africa, during the colonial era. We all knew that these were aligned with the colonial interests, right? So most of the ports that you see in Africa, some of them being, usually built just to be able to ship, minerals and all out of Africa, not really in the interest of Africa. So I think this question is very important. So how do we ensure that Chinese-funded projects align with the national development priorities and needs of African countries? So, Anna, you want to come in first, or you want Dennis to start? I don't know which one. If this one you can ask.
Okay, I can.
Okay, you can go. Go ahead.
Luckily, I've been part and parcel of giving advisory to the FOCAC and also to the Belt and Road. And we've been having these engagements. That was before the September 2024 FOCAC. And so we were looking at how can we be able to harmonize basically FOCAC agenda and also the Agenda 2063. Because remember, we also have our own agenda as a continent. Yeah. And just other than a continent, we also have individual nationals agenda. Like here in our country, Kenya, you look like Tanzania, they have what we call the Vision 2030. And so what happens that we're able to infuse some of these policy agendas with that what FOCAC. So the FOCAC don't that come from anywhere. Is that they're able to harmonize these critical areas. And so when we come to the issue of also the sustainability of it, you'll find that one of the things in Agenda 2063, the Africa Blueprint, the issue of regional integration. And then you ask yourself, how has FOCAC been able to enhance regional integration? We've seen the issues of the construction of roads. We've seen the issues of the railway. Today, one of the things that as a country we've been pushing that we are able to do that our standard gauge railway, which coming from the port of Mombasa to pass through Uganda, go to until Rwanda. And that's what we've been pushing. And that's what now the FOCAC agenda is all about. You look at countries like Tanzania, they have also been able to enjoy some of this infrastructure development, which are able to enhance regional integration, which as a content we've been wanting to be able to have. Also, the aspect within the 2063 agenda is able to ensure the aspect of silencing the guns. And then now, I know most of the time we tend to talk more about the infrastructure development, but we tend to forget some of what we call now the soft infrastructure aspect of it. And so when we are silencing the gun, and also FOCAC, you look at the issues of security cooperation, which again has been tied within the bigger framework of the Global Security Initiative that President Xi Jinping launched. And so these are what are helping. And so it's not just FOCAC is driving its own agenda and the content, it's all of them have been harmonized. And so basically what happens to be in Agenda 2063, if you look carefully, you'll find that in FOCAC, they are being harmonized together. And you see now we're able to handle all these things and able to deal with them and able to ensure that Africa gets to be able to.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I think, I mean, for us, in the discussion that we had over a period, that's what makes FOCAC unique. That's what makes FOCAC a very potent platform. And I believe that it's become a very enviable platform, if you ask me, looking at, so we did an article about Africa +1 Summitry, which is all the other, Africa plus, kind of platforms. So we have a lot of them, with different countries, different regions. Some of them are country specific, some of them are regional focus, whether it's, I don't want to mention, but they are there, right? But if you look at the formats, if you look at the process involved in even developing the agenda leading to the FOCAC, the level of consultation, right? I mean, because of the work that we do, we get to see some of the and that is what makes when you read the action plan, you virtually find it in almost most of the, if not all, most of the developmental plans of African, whether it's national or regional, as you mentioned, or even at a continental level, which is very, very important. I believe that level of harmonization is very, very important. Yeah. There's a question for Anna. I will just ask this from Anonymous. So in terms of the question is about the African president, visiting China. I mean, vis-a-vis the FOCAC, as you were there. I mean, what would be the most important point for them? Is it investment? Is it cooperation? This industrial technology? I mean, what do you think based on your experience? What stands out for you? What should be a key priority for them? In a briefly under just a minute or two. Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for the question. So as the spectator mentioned, investment, cooperation, industrial technology exchange are the key points, key issues listing in their agenda. But of course, as I said before, when country, small or big African country, they won't come alone, the president. There's a really vertical, diverse delegation, including from up to town, including public administration, ministers, public institutions, because it's also from export-import agency, cooperation agencies that African countries can concretize their partnership and their signed projects. So these actors, these players are very important. And of course, there's also a important part of countries' delegation is the private sector players. And among this private sector players, what can I say that industrial exchange, technology sector, clean energy, health, and also agricultural sector among the key issues of African's delegations. And of course, as a presidency of the country, he assures also a reputation, a diplomatic role within the African-China relationship exchange. But I think globally and more African leaders will, just like Xi Jinping said, let's go on for the small and beautiful projects. The investment may be decreased, but if we can reach a more a larger coverage, if we can reach the population, if they can reach a locally beneficial results, they will do it. So I think today generally the African leaders are really in a practical approach, and of course according to don't forget about the actual geopolitical tensions and regional security concerns, because in Chinese cultures also Chinese investors are quite in a de-risking logic. I think in 2025 the de-risking logics will be still more important, because with the Sahel region and the security issues inside DRC crisis, they will say, yeah, let's just slow down, maybe let's observe, and we go on further. So don't forget about the actual situation in Africa.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you very much for that insight. There's a question here from Cesar. I believe it's related to our discussion, asking about the synergy between FOCAC and BRICS. We all know BRICS, and now FOCAC. Of course, FOCAC is exclusive African. China and BRICS has other countries outside of the Africa-China chain. So the question is there any synergy at all between Africa and FOCAC and BRICS? Yeah, I mean, just one sentence, Dennis, you want to take that? Is there any synergy?
The synergy is there. Reason why is that all these countries are involved are within the global south, and BRICS are within the global south, FOCAC also the global south, and so with that synergy, able to develop and able to ensure that we all grow together and be able to enjoy development.
Yeah, obviously, I mean, we cannot have FOCAC, I mean, conversation without talking about, because usually there's a bit of investment. I've already seen, I think, even on the slide of Anna, she mentioned about a $50.7 billion commitment from China over the next 3 years, and of course, some are in grants, some are investment, and all of that, right? Of course, we all understand about even the issue about debt sustainability. I think this is something that Dennis mentioned also briefly in his presentation. But really, how does, and now of course, so we understand, and that's what I love about the dynamics when it comes to Africa-China relations, when a key policy announcement sort of aligns with the reality on the ground, right? So obviously, we've seen Chinese investment, outward investment went into huge mega infrastructure project, which are very capital intensive, right? So a small country takes on a project and it's already swallowing even 70% of that country's GDP, right? And so that obviously brings a conversation about, debt and all of that. And now we have seen our narrative about small, beautiful, impactful project, which means we're not looking at the mega project that is of billions of, but $50 billion is still huge money anyways. So the question is, how do we balance the nuances when it comes to, the debt, conversation happening in countries in Africa, vis-a-vis the investment from China that is coming in, whether it's, like you said, loans or grants and all of that, concessionally level, but it still will add up to the debt stock of countries in Africa. So any take on this? Yeah, Dennis, go ahead. Yeah, sure.
I think when you look, last year was in Brazil, attending basically the Global South Forum, and what you've just said is what we were trying to talk and also think through it and be able to see how we can be able to enhance that all of us get to benefit and also because the issue of the debt stability, it's something that has really been one of the biggest challenges within the China-Africa cooperation. And you see, and when you look at it deeper, it goes back to some of the endogenous issues that I was saying, especially the aspect of governance. You'll find that most of the countries, most of African countries or our leaders will go to China, attend the FOCAC summits, negotiates for some of these loans and be able to get part of it. But once we get home, what happens to go to now the development aspect? It's quite little. This is because the bigger chunk of it ends up in people's pockets. And so when now the return comes, when now the development is supposed now to reap investment, it's too little. See, and this is one of the key issues that we've been trying to push and be able to have some of our leaders able to understand that they need to have because you see in Africa we have different crops of leaders. We have leaders who are driven with that nationalist aspect of it, and that's why we are trying to see the emergence of some of those leaders in West Africa. Yet again, we have some of these leaders who have been in power for quite a long time, and our countries have become their personal investment vehicles for their own individual benefits. And so when you come to the issue of the debt and abuse question, it's something that until we deal with the issues of our own governance, until the issues of our own internal mechanism to handle the issues of corruption, we'll never be able to deal with this monster personality. And that's why you find the West are using it to discredit some of these investments. If you look at the genesis of the debt trap diplomacy, it's basically based on that, our own individual problem. Then now the West get to use and turn it against us. And so when I remember when one of our biggest issues, some of us were pushing and we were trying to advise our counterparts in China is just they need to drop these issues of small and beautiful projects. And that's what most of our agenda, because that was introduced to try and be able to deal with the mega infrastructure project. But then we ask ourselves, if we are going to go to the small and beautiful, yes, we like and we appreciate because it's able to deal with the livelihoods of the community level, whereby you find like in a country like Zimbabwe, China were able to drill almost 1,000 boreholes. But it again, remember what has really pushed Africa back is that the lack of those mega projects. And that has affected us as a region, as a country, as a continent. We're not able to push the regional integration. This is because we don't have a road that connects between Kenya and Uganda, Kenya and South Africa. I remember when Kenya we are having a challenge, basically political challenge, stability in 2007. Uganda was struggling because our brothers decided to uproot one of the railway, which was now transporting goods from Kenya to Uganda. And so Ugandans were struggling because of our own behavior. But yet again, if you see you're able to push some of these mega projects and be able to trade with each other, and be able to push and be able to grow. And that's what it's going to transform our continent. And just to add, out of the, I remember when Anna was saying that, and you asked about what the African leaders will go for. Our biggest challenge is that our leaders don't talk to each other before they go to FOCAC. We don't harmonize our own policies.
Go to FOCAC before they start talking to themselves.
Exactly. That's the thing. And so those are the things, some of the indigenous challenges that I keep on saying that until we're able to harmonize them, then even the benefits of FOCAC, the 360 billion yuan that is there for us to be able to push some of these development projects, we won't be able to benefit as much.
Thank you very much. That's very insightful. I'm going to ask Anna a last question because we have to be wrapping up, and then after that we'll take our final comments. So Anna, I know you're involved in a lot of communications, strategies, as you mentioned earlier. That's what you've been doing over the years. So my question is, what will be the missing link? What will be the missing link in terms of communication strategy for African countries that are aiming to attract more investment from China? I mean, with the invest in Gabon example and all of that, what will be the best? Again, also even Chinese, also I'm sure this can be also important for them. What will also be for them in terms of able to do more in Africa in terms of communication standpoint? Just in 2 minutes. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, I'll keep it in 2 minutes. It's a really interesting question. One of the African country like the Republic of Congo has already the consciousness of the importance of Chinese adapted strategy communication. When I was in Beijing, so I have made a complete media plan designated to Chinese audience, and that is the key point. Actually, you can give an interview in Jeune Afrique or in Bloomberg about Africa's issues and tomorrow's perspectives. But however, Chinese audience and mainly Chinese investors don't give many attention to these channels. So keep up a Chinese audience, have a complete media and especially digital strategy communication are quite important. Today, one Chinese people, I think, can spend, I don't know, 6-7 hours on her telephone, and the mobile phone has become the most the majority informative method for Chinese for Chinese investors also, from Weibo to WeChat. I know I think there are some persons here are making business with China, so you may familiar with WeChat. So keep the Chinese audience and also have a strategic media plan in China. Of course, we have CGTN, CCTV, but these are official channels, official voice to do business and to invest, attract investors. Each sector has also its key channels. Maybe you need to invest more in marketing than communication, more digital than paper. So these are important points when you really look out with Chinese investors. And of course, we can go to China just getting up from the bed. You need to know more about what's going on there. I think it's a quite difficult point, is that we're not really aligned with what is going on actually in China. There's always a kind of difference, time lapse between the information and what is the tendency of sectors. So I think collaborate or work with independent or consulting, go-to-market consulting agencies are really important. And of course, communication is an important part when you want to leverage the reputation, leverage also the expertise. Because when you go to China, you have exchange of expertise, resources. So all of that need to be got, but correctly. This information need to be got correctly by the Chinese investors. So that is a difficult part, the communication part. But like us, we have some professionals and more professionals who are in this sector.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. I will take the last comment, Anna, on this discussion. Anything that you'd like to say so that we can wrap up, then before Dennis will come in with his last comment as well.
Well, thank you so much for all of these questions. They're really interesting. Maybe I will keep the name and maybe I can respond to you later. And thank you again. Thank you very much, Paul, for having me. And thank you so much, Dennis, Mercy, for your insight. And we hope that a future edition of FOCAC in Republic of Congo in Brazzaville will be a successful event. And maybe by then we could always have organized a similar discussion and analysis in the future. And it was really a pleasure and a great honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you. Dennis, your last comments, anything you would like to, you've gone through, I'm sure you've seen the questions that are left there. If anyone that you want to comment on or anything, then we can just wrap up here.
I think mine just to, I'll comment on what Professor Ambassador has talked about, the issue of the Tazara Railway. And more so, you see, the issue of the Tazara Railway basically was to solve a crisis between Tanzania and Zambia that was there in 1960. And so when these two leaders went and spoke to China, at that time, China was one of, it had just come from one of the worst droughts. But China was able to support and be able to push and help in pushing the Tazara Railway. And so the Tazara Railway basically was more of a peace project, which also ended up becoming a development project. And it's what we Africans have always been trying to push, the issue of the African Renaissance. And you look some of our founding leaders who have been pushing the issue of Pan-Africanism, and more so the African Renaissance, is that basically we're supposed to deal with the issues of poverty, able to push the issues of integration, the issue of cohesion that has been there. And this is what FOCAC basically is trying to do. The question that I keep on asking is, will our leaders be able to tap into the spirit of African Renaissance and be able to live and have the spirit of FOCAC be able to push and implement some of these things? Because we have come at a time when we really need to be able to ensure that we stop talking about African Renaissance and the Pan-Africanism agenda and all these things that we push as Africans. And able to see that we've been able to have an opportunity to be able to push our own agendas with the help of China. But yet again, at this time, we're not supposed to be getting any help, because remember, we have our own minerals which we can be able to leverage and use them to develop our country. And for me, this is the message that I keep on talking about, that as an African, we need to be able to talk to each other, be able to dialogue, and as we be able to say that basically what is in for Africa, the opportunities and challenges, we need to ask ourselves, what exactly do we want? And if we're able to push and fulfill that at 2063, then again, we're able to accomplish what we, the African, because what Africans want is to end poverty, to be able to survive, to be able to live in harmony and peace, be able to move from one area to the other. And that's what the people within the communities and Africans at large want. And if we can be able to tap into FOCAC and fulfill that, then we need to do that. Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward for more discussions and to push the Africa story, because it's not about the China story, it's about the Africa story that you're doing. Yeah.
Okay, so I think it was a very insightful session there. Sorry, I had to drop off because I had a little network challenge. So it has been a very insightful session. All too soon, we'd like to come to the end of our webinar. having so many insights shared right from the inception of FOCAC, and then a focus on the immediate 9th FOCAC dialogue with a focus on the 10 partnership action plan by President Xi Jinping, and then also a look at China's pledge of a $51 billion investment in Africa to our Small is Beautiful project, and also a shift to more clean and practical projects. I think it was a very insightful section. So special thanks going out to our speakers for taking time off their duties to take us through a very insightful section. And to you, dedicated attendees, we'd like to extend our appreciation to you as well. So I think you can also do well to follow our speakers on all social media platforms. They're on LinkedIn. You can follow them to continue the conversations over there. And also you can follow ACCPA, because this video is being recorded and it will be uploaded on our YouTube page as well. So those who of you who would like to visit and also access our previous recorded webinars, you can do well to go to our YouTube page and then get that one too as well. ACCPA is also on all social media platforms. Do well to follow us so that you get the notification whenever we are going live. So without much ado, we'd like to end here. And the last thing, ACCPA is still open to any form of partnership and collaboration. So you can reach out to us via email so that we take it from there. Okay, so without any contribution or further submission, I think we can close the meeting here. All right, so thank you all once again. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Stay. Bye-bye.